My name is Toinette ter Haar. I live in Newton, Massachusetts with my husband Ernst and my son Gustav. I'm surrounded by a loving community, not only in Newton, but with my friend Barbara John.
Oh, thank you, Toinette. And my name is Barbara John, and I'm a producer here at New TV. And once in a while I do interviews, but Toinette and I do podcasts together, which are interviews. And I enjoy so much my relationship with Toinette. What was your wedding like?
We actually, after I graduated law school a year before he finished his PhD program. So after that, he finished his PhD program, and he said that he had an offer for Harvard to do his postdoctoral fellowship. And I'm like, Harvard, huh? You're cute, but you're not that cute. And I didn't realize, of course, how smart he was. So he gets accepted, and he says he's moving to Boston. And he, of course, at that point, we had been living together. And he goes, you're coming with me, aren't you? And I'm like, I guess I'm coming with you to Boston. And I'm thinking, Boston? Like, it's just a place, like it's so far east and out there, all alone.
North, cold.
Cold, like nobody I know, like, yeah, this is going to be hard. And I quit my job, and my boss looked at me, he goes, you're going to follow that guy? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to follow that guy. I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to go follow the guy. I'm going to do this for love. And so Ernst and I moved to Boston, and we lived together for a couple more years. And at some point I said, where is this going? Because, I'm living with you. I kind of gave up my career, moved to Boston, trying to figure it out because it's not that friendly of a place for black people at that time. And I said, what are we going to do? And he says, let's get married. So we got married in Holliston, Massachusetts.
And where?
Holliston.
Oh, Holliston.
And at their historical society in their barn, which was, during October, fall. It was beautiful. It rained. And then right when we were getting married, the sunshine and everything was fresh smelling because it had just rained. And it was just beautiful. We had a beautiful wedding. My parents were able to make it. His parents were able to make it. We had friends that traveled from abroad, friends that traveled from California. So it was an amazing day that all these people from all these different walks of our lives came together, and it was actually our Boston friends that hosted everybody. So it was quite amazing.
Oh, that's very nice. Did you go on a honeymoon?
Well, there was this. My husband and he had visa issues because he had decided to leave the country. This was before 2001, before 9/11, and he decided to leave the country without proper permission because he was on a visa, on an H-1B visa. So at that point in time, the immigration officers, of course, we know they have great discretion, just allowed him back in the country. And so he had this problem where he couldn't leave again. So we decided to honeymoon in Florida. And so because it was October, it was kind of low season, but it was hurricane season. So,
yes.
So we were gonna honeymoon out on the Keys in these mangroves, which were like on the beach. And they were like huts, and it was going to be truly romantic until the hurricane came and lifted the beach up off. And so that went out the window.
Yeah.
So we had 1 week, so we had to make alternate plans. So we went to the west coast of Florida, and we were at a campsite. And it was the most pitiful situation because, again, it was October. So we're at a campsite camping because, our part of our reservation went awry. And we had next to us was a family living in a tent with a kid, with a television, with the parents getting up in the morning, going to work, and taking the kid to school, and they were working there until they got enough money for them to get a place. And I thought that was so sad. And then there was a guy, again, before cell phones, there was a payphone. So here's a guy on a payphone trying to get a job, and he doesn't have a phone, and all he has is a payphone, and he's telling people, well, I'm on a payphone, so you have to tell me the time that you're going to call me back, because I can't stand at the phone all day, and wait to answer it. And so I was so like, here I thought Florida was filled with these rich people and everything was great. But here I was at a campsite camping, but there were other people around me who weren't camping. They were trying to make a living, and they were trying to live. Like, they were in a sense homeless. And that's, where homeless people live in Florida.
Yeah.
So that was heartbreaking for our, first part of our honeymoon. And then the second part of our honeymoon, I have to say, we went to Miami and we stayed in a really fancy hotel. And but it was I guess that was also always part of my life. Like, here you are with the poor people, and then here you are with these very, wealthy people who are like, throwing away, $5 bottles of water, and, people were trying to piece together, money so that they can get an apartment.
So you had kind of a disappointing honeymoon here. So Boston, you said something about Boston. You found Boston kind of unfriendly at first. Mm-hmm. And so tell me a little about that.
Boston was, segregated, at least when that, and there was a lot of, racial tension still from the 70s. I take it, like, not knowing the history, not being a part of it, and not growing up in Boston, it was hard to understand because, again, I had no problem. I had figured out that I had a job, and at some point in time there was going to be merging and acquisitions. So, technically somebody had to start laying off people. So rather than laying off people, this boss was trying to use the fact that, sort of intimidation and I think I was being intimidated, and I didn't realize it at the time, but basically had sent me into South Boston to do an employment investigation between two,
You were working for a law firm.
I was working for an organization, I'll just say that. I was working for a corporate organization, and they'd asked me to do an investigation, because I did employment stuff of a discrimination complaint. And the discrimination complaint was coming from a recent Irish immigrant, versus maybe a first or second generation Irish immigrant in South Boston. And they sent me there, and I had no idea. And we're living in Brighton. I said, I'll take public transportation. I'm walking down Broadway. Everybody's staring at me. I mean, kind of, because I'm dressed, and I'm walking. I got my briefcase, and I'm walking in my heels. And and they're staring at me, and I say, hi. Hi, how are ya? Hi, what's going on? And they give you the nod, and there was a reciprocation. There wasn't anything foul. Everybody was friendly. And at some point I had to ask somebody, I'm looking for this address, can you help me out? I can't figure out south from north to save my life, east from west. And Boston is always confusing to me.
Oh, yes.
To me, it's confusing. So then somebody found out where I was going, and he says, I'll walk you there. That's when I knew I was in South Boston. I mean, again, a place where people, they were looking at me like, where's she going? What's she doing here? Who is she, because I was definitely an outsider. And the person who sent me there sent me there as a means to intimidate me, And I wasn't intimidated at all. It didn't work. Basically, it didn't work, unfortunately, for that person. But, you know, when I told my friend, I was like, oh, yeah, I was there. And they said, what? Like, you know, it took a white person to tell me that I think that person was trying to intimidate you by sending you. Like, and I was like, what do you mean by that? I was so naive.
Yeah.
Had no idea. If I had it all over to do, I don't know if I would have landed in corporate America.
Yeah.
Wasn't cut from the cloth.
No, that
No.
wasn't where you even planned to be.
No.
You planned to be in a nonprofit.
A nonprofit, yeah, helping people. Yeah.
So how long did your job in this terrible place last?
No, not long. I think maybe a year or two.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so what else did you find about Boston?
I connected with. I found out that people who were from Boston, of course, had a lot of big families, so it was hard for them to start sort of connecting with other people because they already had so much going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't, you know, that was my realization why they say people from Boston aren't that friendly, because outsiders always expected people to invite them to dinner and, you know, kind of take them in. Mm-hmm. And they didn't find that. And I figured out why, because, you know, they got this big family. They've got all this stuff going on that you probably don't even want to be involved in. Mm-hmm. You know, so I found my community was through Harvard, and it was a lot of international students. And then that's how we built our community. And so a lot of my friends that I had early on, of course, you know, they left Boston. Some of them moved and they would come back. But, you know, for the people that stayed here, that became our community. So, you know, it was from Harvard that we built this community of people who were not from Boston. And there's maybe, you know, you run into one or two people who are from Boston, but
But generally your friends have not been from
Boston.
And you don't find Boston a very welcoming place?
Not then. I mean,
Do you think it's more welcoming now?
Now I think absolutely. It's become much more, I'll say much, it's always been an internet, you know, one of the things I think that's probably different Boston from Pittsburgh, because they were a lot alike. But Boston, because of, I'll say, the educational opportunities here, attracted a lot more international students, and they accepted a lot more international students, I think, even though my husband was an international student in Pittsburgh. But the population just got bigger, so it became more diverse, and I think that has helped Boston reshape itself. And I think it's going to be, you know, 20 years from now, it's going to be a very different place politically. I mean, you know, our mayors have been either Italian American, Irish American. I think our next mayor's, you know, going to be Asian, Hispanic American. You know what I mean? Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be a different
Well, the
place.
city council's very different. The
Yeah.
Boston City Council now
Yes.
has, you know, a lot of black women,
Mhm.
but women too.
Women.
Used to be all male. When you got to Boston, did you have any very exciting or emotionally relevant experiences once you got, you know, during the course of your living in Boston? Because one of the things I think happened here is you had a child.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So my husband Ernst and I, we have a son. His name is Gustav, and he's 18 now. So you know, we had decided to become parents, and it was interesting. At the time, we had friends. Like I said, we had friends, and we had a group of friends, and we were all going out as couples and having lots of fun. And somebody said, "I'm pregnant," and then the next person said, "I'm pregnant too," and I said, "I'm pregnant 3," and we all started laughing because we had never talked about having kids, getting pregnant, and the funniest thing is that the 2 other women, they were pregnant with twins, and I was the only one who was having a single pregnancy, and I said, "I'm only having 1." We decided to become, you know, parents with some, you know, we didn't, I don't think we really knew what we were getting into, but
I don't think any parents do for the first time.
no. So we didn't, we just thought, oh, it'd be nice to be parents and, raise a child together, focus on somebody other than ourselves, and so I said, okay. So we did it. So our son is really quite handsome. He's sweet. He's charming. And he's a wonderful, wonderful man. Yesterday he voted for the first time, so he's very excited about voting, and he asked me for my New York Times subscription so that he could follow the race results, real time on the New York Times. So I was like, oh gosh, this is really exciting. He really wants to participate. So I think about it and I say, I have to nurture that. He's going to have to continue, the things that I didn't get a chance to continue. And so, my hope, and he said he wants to build an empire, and I said, well, hopefully it'll be a public interest, empire, that will do good, for someone other than yourself. And so I want to help support that.
Yeah, so what were some of the challenges in being a mother?
I think the challenge for me in being a mother is sort of knowing, I guess knowing how to nurture, a young man, a man of I'll say a mixed race and, mixed nationality. One of the fears that I have, being a black mother, is that, my son will come back to me one day in a body bag. And, I hope it's an unrealistic fear, but it's a fear for me, because, again, thinking about him growing up in a bubble, and then knowing at some point really soon he's about to get pushed out to the real world. And the real world is not going to see all those attributes that I said earlier. They're going to see a brown boy, and any biases or any, I'll say any biases or any preconceptions are going to get in the way. And all of a sudden his life is not going to matter.
I hear black parents talking to their kids about how to talk to police. Don't confront police people, and speak nicely, and forget your anger if you're angry, because they have the power and they have the guns. Mm-hmm. So do you talk to Gustav about that?
No, I haven't had, we call it the talk. I haven't had the talk because I don't know how to have the talk. I have not had that. I think that chips away at your child's self-esteem in a way, because you're telling them that, again, you're not telling them, but you're reinforcing the fact that there's a community out there that won't respect you because you're brown. And I have a hard time kind of playing that narrative in my son's head. I want to play the narrative that people will respect you because of you. They, I'm trying to figure out, will there, how do we start peeling away those biases? And I just hope at some point in time that doesn't become part of the conversation.
So what are some of the joys that you've had in being a parent?
Oh my gosh, I think it's the love. There's just so much love. Like, all you can say is that, I love you to my son. He says, Mom, I love you. He'll go, I'm leaving for school, but Mom, I love you. And I say, I love you too. You are so amazing. You are just so amazing. Go have a wonderful day. And I say, be awesome every day. And he laughs. He kind of puts his head down and he laughs because, he's a little shy. but he's turning out to be a wonderful young man, and I have to be thankful again for our community, because it takes a village. I really do still believe that it takes a village, and my village has really come through. It's been my friends being supportive and being loving, and letting him know that he has uncles, and he has uncles that are. He goes, "Why are they my uncles when they're not related to us?" I said, "Because they're our uncles." And he has aunties, that are not related to us. So he just has this amazing community.
To change the subject a little, you've traveled quite a bit. Where are some of the places you've traveled to?
Well, I've traveled.
Beside that awful honeymoon in Florida.
Florida, yeah. I traveled. It's interesting. I was thinking about that. I've traveled within the U.S. and I'll have to say, one of my favorite things to do is to travel not as close to home, but to travel within the U.S. is to learn more about the different regions and the different people. And I say that from the perspective that, people, there was this perception you know how white people are. And I say, well, I don't know how all white people are. But, I'm trying to meet as many as I can, so I can learn, And so that's my thing, because I like learning about people and learning about their experiences and having them share, their lives with me. So traveling, outside the U.S., of course, I've been to Europe quite a bit, Central America, the Dominican Republic, and Central America. I don't think I've been to South America yet.
Where did you go in Central America?
Costa Rica.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you like it there?
Oh, I loved it there. I love it there because, I love Costa Rica because it has so much natural. There's natural
they
beauty.
really respect nature.
Yeah,
in that
and
place.
they live with nature. Like they don't separate themselves, or they figure it out how to live with nature, and they're okay with it.
Yeah. Very progressive country.
Yes, and I think that whole. I think it's. I forgot there's a slogan that they say, but. I just think it's amazing, and I didn't spend much time in the city. I spent a lot of time along the Pacific coast and in the jungle, and it was just amazing. I really liked it a lot.
And you've been to Holland a lot.
Yeah.
You don't like Holland so much.
Well, Holland, it's interesting. Well, it's interesting to me because Holland is a small country. You don't have to travel that far. So to find a little bit difference, but then it's so homogeneous, and that, I'm hoping over the past 20 years that changed, but I find it to be a tremendously homogeneous place. And I say that from the perspective that it's so organized. It's like city, suburb, farm, city, suburb, farm, city, suburb, farm. It's a pattern. And so you're driving, you're like, haven't we just been here? But no, not yet. So it's not a very interesting train ride from Amsterdam to Paris until you get closer to France.
Yeah, also it's very flat.
Yes.
And that makes it kind of uninteresting too. Do you have, this is the last question, so do you have any ideas about the best ways to live a happy and successful life that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I guess people always say, I don't know if it's not following your passion, but I think you should follow your gut in terms of how you live your life.